A woman reaches a certain age when either she tells herself or someone tells her, at your age, you shouldn't, you wouldn't, you can't. Well, here on A Certain Age, we celebrate those women who should, who will, and who can do amazing things. I'm your host, Lee Hayes. Welcome to A Certain Age. And today, my guest is Yudy Veras Bueno. She's a spiritual guide and an international speaker and a best-selling author. She's known as the joyful shaman to the women of her tribe. Yudy believes that finding joy is the key to life. Her #1 best-selling book, The Becoming of a Light Warrior, a practical guide to emotional breakthrough, is written to answer the cry of the many women who are in need of healing. She has served hundreds of women and their loved ones. Welcome, Yudy. It is so nice to have you here today. I can feel your positive energy. It's in the room, so thanks for joining us. And I love that now you share joy with women, but I know that when you started in a really tough place. Can I jump right here and ask you, how did this all start? Tell me about your childhood.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. You're very inspirational. And yes, I believe that the key to life is joy, but that wasn't always like that. As a child, I had a really beautiful childhood until I was 7. My father was my hero. He basically created a great foundation. But then he passed away, and my mother became very ill, mentally ill, that she couldn't take care of us, and I had to move and live with someone else. And so at 7 years old, I lost everything that I knew and everything that was familiar. My family, my circle, the way, sort of like it was a fairy tale story, and then became very tough. And then things started happening, sexual abuse and different experiences that really impacted me deeply and that I wasn't able to understand. At 7 or 8, you don't have the emotional strength to understand what was, what happening.
Right, so that was, really rough. So you're from the Dominican Republic,
Yes.
right? So that's where you were, and you said, so you had a really tough childhood, right? You lost your mother, your father. You basically lost your mother emotionally,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sexually abused. But then you came to the U.S. as an immigrant. How did that inspire you, and how did that change your life at that point?
Well, I think it was a very interesting change because it was sort of like an opportunity for me to reinvent myself. I was very young when I came. And I have all these dreams, all this drive to become something different, to prove that I wasn't that, abandoned child, that I wasn't that sort of like orphan that I saw myself as, and it was an opportunity to create, that strong woman that I was. And I went into corporate, and that sort of, a whole cycle of stressful, I became this workaholic woman who was really wanted to prove herself and find validation, and just like one of those go-getter. And, it was tough because I didn't speak the language, so I needed to learn. I went to school, I went back to college. So it was a whole process of readapting, reinventing, recreating myself. And it was fun. I wouldn't lie, but then it became almost as a disease. The more I did, the more I achieved, the more I wanted.
All right, so you were, just understanding, because I know other people do this, so every success just made you want more.
Yes, it was not end to that.
Right, so it's an addiction of its own.
It is an addiction.
It's a success addiction? I don't know if that's really,
it's sort
that
of
you need more validation? Is that what it was?
It's sort of like the need for approval.
Okay.
The need to feel validated, that your sense of worth is attached to these successes. And so, at least for me, it was like that. I was suffering from depression. I was suffering from anxiety. I was suffering, I felt inadequate. I tried to fit into a society that it was very difficult for me as an immigrant, with an accent, trying to understand the new culture. And it was like, I felt like I needed to prove myself. And so for that, I became a workaholic. So it was an addiction because I was getting something out of it. It
right.
made me feel worthy.
But you were working in a big corporate job. You were
Yes.
making good money.
Great money.
You had great successes.
Yes.
And you felt inadequate.
I did. Totally inadequate. Like I didn't achieve anything. And it was, the more I did, the more I questioned myself and my place in the world.
And it kept getting worse. So what?
It kept getting worse. And so I became this workaholic. I didn't have time for myself. I felt like I needed to do that to create a sort of like a role model for my daughter to follow, right? So that she'll see her mother is successful. I can do this too as an immigrant. And then I started neglecting my well-being. I started eating very poorly, no exercise whatsoever, became 215 pounds overweight. I had an issue with food. I was binging. When I travel and I felt alone, then food was there, and that was sort of like my escape too. And then that created a sense of like more inadequacy. I have all this success, but I'm not able to control other things in my life, or not to control, but like to enjoy, with my family, to share my success with them. I felt totally alone, really, truly, which is interesting.
Because again, you're highly successful.
Yes.
And you feel alone.
And then feeling alone, feeling like inadequate, like nothing I did really mattered.
Right.
And the more I did, the more I felt like I needed to do more.
And then you said the binge eating. So interesting that was actually a sign of stress or depression, maybe.
It was a sign of all the above,
Yeah.
the stress, depression, anxiety, because when there's certain feelings that are very difficult to face. Like in my case, I had issues in my childhood with sexual abuse and all that, right? And I never addressed those because it was, a lot of shame attached to that, a lot of, feeling like I did something wrong. And so it was this fear of like, who's gonna believe me? And it sort of like haunted me for years. Not the inability to be able to speak about it, but not only speak about it, be able to heal from that and be able to talk about it openly without stigma. You see?
Right. Okay, so then, but I know, again, your story continues to get worse. You had a heart attack. How old were you?
I was 36 years old. And I think that heart attack, when people ask me what triggered that,
Yeah.
it was many different elements. It was the element of, the first is feeling inadequate, then becoming this workaholic to try to fulfill that feeling. And then I took like 10 different type of medication only to function. Every day I have to load myself with all this medication to be able to wake up. And so I was 36 and I felt like a 100 years old woman. Like I had to drag myself out of the bed every day.
So you had medication for all sorts of
things, high blood pressure. I suffer from migraine, like very chronic migraine, anxieties, depression, all these things that over-the-counter medication for headaches, and I mean, you name it. I was like a walking pharmacy.
God, I'm laughing. It's not funny, but
it's ridiculous, really. I mean, I don't say this. I know that a lot of women are going through something, similar, maybe not the same, but similar. And I don't want to, it's a serious thing. It is very serious. But then, women's, what we do, we usually, at least in my case, is like justifying, well, I need to work for my kids and I need to do this for them. It's sort of like justifying not to do something to fix it, not to do something.
And now many people say once you have the heart attack or the physical breakdown, that's the turning point. But I don't think it was for you. What was your turning point?
Well,
your life?
The heart attack, it was very scary. Mm-hmm. It was like, my father died when I was 7. And he died of a heart attack. So to me, it was like, oh my God, I'm repeating the same cycle. That was a wake-up call. But the turning point, I remember, I was driving my daughter to an event or something. And we were talking about self-love and self-image and how we see ourselves. And I remember her saying something like, I hate myself. I hate looking at myself in the mirror.
So your how old was your daughter then?
She was 13 at that point, and that made me realize that, oh my God, this is serious. because she's such an amazing child. She's so beautiful. And I'm not just saying that, she is truly beautiful. Why would she feel that way? And then that makes me realize, oh my God, I feel the same way. I hate to see myself in the mirror. And so at that moment, I realized that my fears, my insecurities, I was projecting them into her unknowingly, subconsciously. Because think about it. At that point, all I wanted to be was the best mom. I wanted to be able to be the mom that I didn't have. You see? And so at that moment, I felt like a failure. It's like nothing, and that moment was like nothing I did matter, because these are the results. And so I have this feeling of guilt and this feeling of, oh my God, I created this, It was tough, but that, I think it needed to happen. Because what happened is, as women, we always putting ourselves last. Mm-hmm. So if you're doing something for yourself, it feels like selfish. But at that moment when I saw my daughter is suffering, and also my son had other challenges, then I need to do something about this. This is critical.
So as a mother, again, you were taking care of everything.
Yes.
Except for you. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's not the best mother then. So how can moms be better for their kids? How do you, because you want your children to succeed. What can you do to be a better mom other than neglecting yourself?
Well, the thing is, not only as a mom, but in anything in life, what I realize is, if you want to be a better mom, a better partner, a better wife, a better sister, better daughter, a better professional, you must really take care of yourself first. You really must learn to do self-love. Because the thing is, by sacrificing ourselves, we think that we're great, we're not selfish. Mm-hmm. Like if I invest on myself, then I am selfish. And it's totally the opposite. Because when I invested in my own well-being, taking care of myself as a person, not just as a mom, but as a person, right, then I became a better mom. I became this powerful, empowering woman that now I can truly serve as a role model for my daughter.
And how did that impact your children?
It impacted them in a total different way. Like, I'm not going to say they're perfect and they're like, but they're happier than before. And, my daughter now goes to FIT. She's becoming an illustrator, and she's talented. Mm-hmm. But now she's able to actually pursue that.
Yeah.
In the past, it would be like, having a hard time to even get out of bed. Now she can pursue her dreams. And that to me is if there's anything that I feel like, okay, I had accomplished, is to truly give them the sense of, yes, I can do it. I can do anything.
And now you took this, so you discovered this in your own daughter and in yourself.
Yes.
And you had this really tough life to this point. Now, how did you turn it around? Because you, at this point, are known as the joyful shaman, right? Now, so a couple things. So start out by, I know your father was a shaman. What is shamanism? Could you explain that to me a little bit?
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah. A lot of people ask me that, like, what is it?
I don't understand it.
Well, shamanism is a lifestyle. Is, as you know right now, everybody's talking about climate change and all that. But in reality is, if we don't change our relationship to the earth and how we see the earth, not a resource, but a source of life, like a living organism. You can picture it as the belly of your mother. And this mother is providing you with everything that you need. I'm not talking about worshiping the earth. I'm talking about creating a relationship, understanding that you and the planet are one together. Like, I cannot live without the tree. Half of my lungs are outside myself, into every tree that there is there. So the moment I create that relationship, I start looking at the earth as a living organism. And as a living organism, then I have a new respect for it. So shamanism is a lifestyle of working and creating and being in harmony with your environment. And not only with your environment, but with yourself. Because inside of you is a whole universe. You see, you're a mini universe in yourself. And when you're in harmony with the earth, with harmony with yourself, now you can be in harmony with everybody else. You see people differently. You see them as this amazing sort of like potential. Like in shamanism, everything we see it as a dormant potential or active potential. And so the idea is to be able to activate that potential in others.
And what is something, so you activate potential in people. I know you have healing circles, and we'll talk about that. What can I do? What can viewers do to activate their own potential, to recognize it? And
well, the first thing, if you think about my own story, I spent 22 years feeling inadequate. Feeling like I was able to do all these things and be successful, but not feeling successful, feeling like a failure in every aspect of my life, right? And so the idea is to become aware. Any healing starts with awareness. You need to become aware of what it is that how you feel. Do you feel realized? Do you feel depressed? Do you feel anxious? Start with facing those feelings. Stop trying to covering them, to suppress them. The more we suppress them, the more they become more like stronger. So the idea is to become with awareness, become aware of how you feel in this moment. And is that a normal thing to feel like that? Because yes, it is normal to feel sad from time to time and off. But feeling like that all the time, questioning every thought you have, even something so silly as sending an email, writing an email and reading this email like 20 times and not, like doubting, oh, should I say that or not? It's becoming aware of those little things that are subtle. But that says a lot about you. And then understand that if you need help, then go and get the help that you need. Because how you feel will project that not only to your friends and to the people that you love the most, will impact them. The way you feel, the way you think about yourself will impact others. Like I was projecting my own fears on my child. I wasn't doing that on purpose.
Right, but you said you reflected and you saw.
Yes.
Your daughter started seeing through your eyes, basically,
yes, it's
right?
like
that
a
she
mirror.
hated herself.
Yes, it's like a loop effect. You see?
Yeah, but you were able to channel these horrible feelings and turn into something very positive. I mean, again, being sexually abused as a child, you said you've been able to take this horrendous experience and I can't say find anything good in it. Obviously, you don't find good in sexual abuse, right? But you were able to create a positive power out of that. How did you do that?
Well, the idea is that what I believe, and not everybody agrees with that, and that's okay, is that every experience that happened to you, there is a learning behind it, right? So I took that experience and I say, what is it that I learned from that? What can I learn from that? And one of the things is that I learned is like, that should not happen to any child. It shouldn't happen. And so in order for us to avoid this type of thing, we need to start speaking up about it, to remove the stigma. Because the first thing I remember, it was feeling like I did something wrong. It was my fault. It's the sense of, feeling ashamed of it. And the idea is like, as a child, you are a child. It's nothing wrong you did. And so the ability to be able to talk about it, release that stigma. And that experience, it happened to me. And for many years, like I say, it was haunting me. But then I took that and I say, what can I do with this? This is what life, this is what happened to me, but it doesn't define me. It doesn't define me as a victim. What can I do with this? And what I did is like, well, I can empower other women to be able to release these feelings of feeling inadequate, ashamed, feeling like they did something wrong. But one of the things that I learned by working with hundreds of women is that, some women will say, well, I wasn't sexually abused, or I didn't have those type of traumas.
Okay, but even as a professional woman, you felt inadequate. So I'm sure there are plenty of women out there who are fine, right? They've never had this abuse, but they still don't feel that they're never good enough.
Exactly.
So let's talk a little bit about your book. So
Yes.
you have got, so you lived through these horrible experiences, but your father was a shaman. Now you are a shaman.
Yeah.
You help women. Tell us about the book and what's in there and how you help. So let's take a look at this.
Yes. So the book is The Becoming of a Light Warrior. And why the Light Warrior? Because I believe that as a woman who wake up every day and you are a warrior, you're exposing yourself, you see, to inspire other women. And so that means that, you know, there's always going to be a fear, right? That you're going to mess up, that you're going to make a mistake, that you're not going to say the right thing. Like for me, you know, having English as my second language, always like, oh, well, I'm not pronunciating. You know what? Doesn't matter. It does not matter. You have something to give of value to inspire others, to empower other women. And you should not use this limitation, that's perceived limitations, to stop yourself from doing something great.
And that's what you talk about in the book, right?
In the book, it's this breakthrough to emotional breakthroughs. What does that mean? It means that whatever happened to you in the past, it doesn't matter how big or how small. Doesn't matter how traumatic it was. What happened to you is your story. And that story doesn't define you. The idea is to learn from those things, to empower yourself, and to use that as a fuel to propel your life. And so what happened to you doesn't define you, but it taught you. And so if you can learn the lesson, then what happened is when we don't learn the lesson, in shamanism we believe that we keep on repeating those things. We keep on repeating the patterns. You know, something happened to you and then, like for instance, there's a lot of women that say, I don't know why I'm attracting guys like this.
Yes, why do I attract men who abuse me, right?
Yes.
It's their pattern.
Yes,
though.
because it's a pattern that they're playing subconsciously. They're not doing this consciously. They're playing a pattern. And so they attract these people who's going to play that role. And so the idea is once you understand you're running that pattern and you do something to heal those things, you know, heal yourself and learn from that, then you won't repeat it again. You see? And so we need to stop this, I call it the toxic cycles that we go into.
So maybe, I mean, it's the hardest thing to do, but it's to recognize in yourself that you have demons, right? That there's
your inner demons.
Your
yes.
inner demons. But so I think, you know, if you say I'm inadequate, or I attract people who abuse me, or whatever, you know, if you feel you've got bad things going on, you need to start working on that. Right.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
but I mean, that's a signal to you, right? That
it is.
If you feel inadequate.
Yeah, the first thing is I call it listening. You have to listen to your ego voice. There's a little voice within yourself that is always like, for instance, take, you know, what you talked about women's a certain age. That limitation, like, well, I'm too old for this. If you think about my own case, I was almost 40 when I decided that I'm going to change my life. I'm going to change my career. I left my job. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to empower women. How am I going to do it? I have no idea. I truly did not know. But that did not stop me. I say, I need to find a way. I need to find a way to do this. So I'm reinventing myself. I was almost 40.
And you said, I believe you said in some cultures, like 40 is, what do you call it, the age of mastery?
Yes.
That's where you start to get it.
And in some of the shamanic culture, that once you become 40 and on, you become a master. Because now is when, you know, you already make tons of mistakes, right? You already learned tons of things. And so now you're ready to teach. So this is called the mastery age.
I love it. The age of 40 is where you finally get it.
Yes.
And you can start teaching others too.
But then what happened is, especially in this country, it's very interesting. You know, we have this idea of retirement. There is no such a thing in the rest of what do you mean retirement? Retire from what? From life? You see? And then that kind of mindset start when you're 40. You see, and the idea is 40 should be your new 20. Why? Because you have all this experience. You already went through a lot of stuff in your life. Now you have the opportunity to take those experiences and say, what is it that I learned from this? What is it that I can teach now? Or if you want to reinvent yourself, this is the best time of really your best time, your best age, because now you have experience, right? Mm-hmm. And you have all this stuff that you have learned, you have skills.
And you're still youthful and fabulous.
You're still youthful and fabulous.
40 is the new 20.
Seriously,
I like that.
I believe so. I mean, look at me. I totally believe that I am fabulous. You see? But you know how long it took me to feel this way?
40
when
years.
I was 20, I felt like so inadequate. I had such a hard time being on my own skin. But now I am, and I feel better than ever.
So you're there, and now what is next for you? Because you're just starting.
Yes.
What's next? What's next
so
for Judy?
What's next is basically empowering more women, touching more souls through my healing circles, which I do. This is not only a healing circle, it's not only for women, but for everybody who are in need of healing, who needs to find their calling, who needs to reinvent themselves and find their voices, you see? And I do a lot of healing circle even with teenagers. You know, I get a lot of moms and teenagers together who wants to, you know, sort of like bridge the gap and understand each other, create a better communication. And so I have my coaching programs, but I also have my healing circles, and I want to be able to bring them to more women, to more community, because I believe that the women is the glue that keep the community together. Mm-hmm. You see? And we don't see ourselves like that, you see? And so we need to reclaim our voices. We need more, women have this ability to nourish. You see, to bring this sense of love, sense of compassion. And we need more of that in our society.
Indeed, yeah. And in fact, I think we have more women leaders now than ever.
Thank God. We need more, though. We need more. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, so where can we find your book? I just want to show this one more time before we go. The Becoming of a Light Warrior, a practical guide to emotional breakthroughs, is available where?
Well, you can find it on Amazon.
On Amazon.
And you can also go to my website, which you're going to be showing shortly.
We will. Yeah.
And you can email me too. If you want a consultation or a healing circle, please get in touch with me. I'm looking forward to empower more women. Yay.
Yay. So yeah, we will show that in a minute at the end of the episode. And I just want to thank you so much, Judy, for joining me today, because it's wonderful the way you took a really tough start and you've grown so far and you've turned it into empowerment for other women.
Yeah. So like, it took it so far. This is just the beginning, but also so fast. It's been the last 3 years, it's been a constant growth. Amazing. And so I know that you have a lot of women out there mm-hmm. who watches the show and they question themselves sometimes about their age. And, I wanted to say, allow yourself to dream. Allow yourself to dream again. Because think about this, if we only have one life, you want to make the best out of this life, right?
So make it the best. So 40 is the new 20? And dream.
You dream, yes.
Thanks so much for being here today. This was great.
Thank you so much.